Good afternoon. Today is January 14th, 2025. My name is Jo Reingold, and I'm here interviewing Sarah Korman. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for waiting for me, and thank you for being here.
We're happy to be here.
Yes, tell us a little bit about your background, whatever you know about your relatives and where they lived, etc.
Sure. I'll start by saying that my family is from Greece. I was born there. My parents are Holocaust survivors, and they are, I'd like to tell you a little bit about them because their story is very interesting and very meaningful, and so many people don't know that there were Jewish people in Greece, let alone what happened to them in the Holocaust, during the Holocaust. So I think I'll start by telling you about my family. My dad was born in a city called Sharis, Greece. It's in the Macedonia area of Greece. And my mom was born in Drama, Greece. I was born in Drama, and so was my brother. So they had a happy life. My dad, as a young child, had to start working. He was one of 5 children, and his father died when he was 5 years old. So back then, women did not work outside of the home. And so even at age 5, he was making money, polishing shoes, and doing all kinds of little things as a child. And he continued to be industrious and hardworking, and started a business, and he had a bus company that went to neighboring cities from Drama, where we lived. But he had a very hard life, and the Holocaust was a horrible experience for him. I know less about his experience. I know more about my mom's. My mom was, my dad was, I think, in his early 30s when the war broke out. But he was a very hardworking man, a wonderful father. My mom was 19 during the Holocaust when the war broke out. I know that both my parents went to Auschwitz camp, but my dad didn't stay in Auschwitz. He was liberated from Dachau, and the American soldiers were the ones that liberated Dachau. My mom was liberated from Auschwitz by the English army and soldiers. I'm going to go back a little bit about telling what happened to my family. My mom was one of 7 children. She had 2 parents that were alive, and when the war broke out. And what happened is they lived in Drama, but they sensed that there was something horrible that was going to happen, and they were very close to the Bulgarian border. If you think of the map of Greece, Athens is in the south, Salonika is up in the north, and then Drama, and where we lived, was a little bit north of Salonika. And there was a huge Jewish population in Salonika, maybe a few thousand in Drama. Anyhow, back to my mom's family, when she was growing up, she went to a Jewish school. It's called, the French started these Jewish schools called Alliance, and she went there, so she learned French. She was a really good student. And when the war broke out, her family sensed that something, it wasn't safe to live there anymore. And since they were close to the Bulgarian border, and Bulgaria was an ally of the Nazis, they knew that they had to do something to move away from that area. And so they got false identification and left in small groups, like my mom and her mother went one time, another sister and a brother went another time to Salonika, which is a very close city, maybe by car 2 hours away, but a larger city, and they thought they could be safer away from the Bulgarian border. But as you know, the Nazis kept infiltrating throughout Greece and other countries that they invaded. And so when they went to Salonika. They were safe for a while. They left their home with everything in it, in Drama. And they settled in Salonika, and they worked for a while, but they were well aware of things changing. They had to wear the yellow stars. They were not allowed to go to certain places. They couldn't go to school. They couldn't walk on busy streets. They couldn't go to the parks. Lots of limitations for Jewish people. But they felt safe and they knew their family was together, and that was very comforting for the family to be together. And little by little, things continued to get worse, and they started the deportations from the train station in Salonika to Auschwitz. My father, I don't know how he got from Drama to Auschwitz, but I know he was there because both my parents had numbers on their arms. And my mom told us the story, actually, because she's done at least 3 testimonies. I learned a lot through her testimonies. When your parents are Holocaust survivors, they don't sit you down and tell you all the drama of what they went through and the trauma that they went through. But because she did so many testimonies, I listened to them again and again, and each time I learn a little bit more. Here's something, it just resonates a little differently. But my mom was very strong, and what happened when they got there and they were told to get off the train, they started making a selection which line you would go to. And my mom being 19, and she had one sister that was married and had a small child, and so that sister with the child did not want to separate from the child. The guard said, you go this way. She said no. So she went with her mother, and the child went with her. And then the 3 sisters, my mom, her sister Matilda, and her sister Julia, were together. And then her brothers were younger than her. My mom was 19, her brothers were younger than her. And one of them hadn't even had his bar mitzvah yet, young. So they went in a different line. Her father went in a different line. I don't know exactly how they determined what age you were. I guess it was just up to the person that was doing the selections. But they figured that my mother's father was old enough to go with older people, even though he was probably in his 40s. But anyhow, so my mom and her sisters, 2 sisters, walked, she said, for a long while until they got to a big area where they were tattooed and their heads were shaved, and they were given prisoner clothing and all that. And then my mom and her sisters were together for a while, and they saw their brothers, the 3 brothers, working, and they didn't get much to eat. But the men and women worked in separate areas, but once on the other side of where they were working, and they had to do very hard work, I'll tell you about that, but they had a little bit of bread, and they said, we're going to give you our bread. And they said, we're going to throw it over the fence by that tree. You'll have our bread. And she said they saw them for a couple of days, but after that they didn't see them. But she saw how hard they had to work too. It was very strenuous work. My mom's work was one where, in the beginning anyhow, they gave the women poles, and they had to break down brick walls and then clean the old mortar off the bricks. It was just hard work, long hours, and for a while that's what she had to do. But later she was able to get work inside, because that's outdoor work. The winters were very harsh there. And she talked about her sister, Matilda. I'm going to cry because this is the sad part. So my mom was in a barrack with her sisters, and they asked which girls would like to take, they didn't have a bathroom there, they just had these buckets, these big barrels, And they said, which girls want, 4 girls, I need 4 girls to take these big barrels out into and dump them wherever the waste field was. And my mom volunteered because she wanted to see what was going on, because initially, before they even started working, they were quarantined in that barrack. And she said, I want to go, and she did. And she didn't speak Yiddish, we're Sephardic, but she saw some French girls out, and she asked the French girls, when are we going to see our mothers? And the French girls said, don't you know? Do you see those chimneys? They've killed our parents, they're burning them. And my mom broke into tears, and so did the other girl she was with. And they went back to the barracks, and they told the other women what happened to their families, because it wasn't, they didn't know about it. And it was devastating. So they knew that all this was happening. They knew it was a killing place. And so my mom and her 2 sisters were together, and her sister Matilda was getting very depressed and very sad. And she didn't want to go out and do the hard work. And my mom said to her, you have to come, just come on, come on. And they couldn't get her to come. And so one day she was selected, because they did daily selections. It wasn't just that initial time that they arrived. And they did it out in the cold, and they didn't call them by their names any longer. It was all by number. And you had to know German enough to say your number and all that, and know what was going on. And so her sister Matilda was chosen to be killed. And somehow she escaped, and she came back to the barrack. But then another time, they selected her again, and this time she was killed. And my mom said, every time my mom would tell that, she would cry years later, years and years later, because she said she knew what she was going to. She knew she was walking to her death. And that was very, very hard for my mom, because it's one thing not to know, it's another thing to know that this is your fate right there and then. Although losing her whole family was devastating. One sister survived with her, but after having lost a member of your family, just one, you know how painful it is and how hard it is to accept that and to keep going, and then to have your whole family murdered. To this day, I don't know how my mom kept going and kept such a positive attitude, but she did. So once she and her sister survived 3 years in a concentration camp, very difficult, almost miraculous to have lived through that for that many years, and so did my dad. My mom and dad knew each other before the war, but they weren't married. And once they were liberated, she said the English army, the English soldiers were so kind and wanted to help them, and they gave them clothes and some money, and she didn't go back to Greece right away. She went to Switzerland and Brussels. And then they said, where do you want to go? Yeah. And she said, I want to go back. I want to see if any of my family survived. She didn't know for a fact.
Right.
And so she went back, and first they went to Athens. And one of her aunts or cousins or something saw her name on some sort of list of people that were survivors. And so from there she went back to Salonika, and she saw my dad there. And that's where they got to talking and all that. And so my dad said, you should come back to drama. My dad had a business before the war. And what happened when the Jews left, other people took over. They just moved into your house. They took over your business and so forth. But my dad got back into his business and paid off the people that had moved in. And so he was already making some money. And my mom, when my dad met up with her again, they started talking, and then they talked about getting married, and he said, come back to drama. And she did. And they got married in Greece. So they lived in Greece after the war for about 3 years. And then my dad heard that they were offering visas to the United States for people that were in concentration camps first. So you couldn't just be someone that survived it, you had to have experienced the horrors of the Holocaust and through being in a concentration camp and so forth. And he asked my mom, and my mom said, absolutely yes.
You're shaking, but you mean yes.
Yes, absolutely yes. We're not going to stay here anymore, because when you, I'm sure this happened to others, but when you came back from the war, there was a lot of anti-Semitism that was still lingering. And also my mom said she didn't even like being in the city, and she had so many memories, and her family wasn't there. It was very difficult. So my brother is 2 years older than I am, and so my mom was pregnant with my sister, and 2 small children, 3 and 5 years old, and they came to the United States. We all came to the United States on a ship, SS Independence, and the manifest my sister discovered through her research said that we were supposed to go to New Haven, Connecticut. Well, first we came to New York, and we stayed in New York for about a month. My mom had an excellent memory. She could still remember the hotel that we stayed at. I don't know how, but she had an exquisite memory, excellent. And then they were planning of where they were going to go. At that time, the Jewish, there were 2 organizations that were helping people resettle, HIAS and the JDC, Jewish
Joint Distribution Committee.
Joint Distribution Committee, thank you. Those were the 2 that were helping people.
Right.
And so they said, well, they were talking about where my parents would settle, and they said, you might want to go to Portland. There's a Sephardic community there. Well, my parents didn't know any cities or states in the United States. And they started asking people about Portland, and they said, yeah, Portland's not far. Well, Portland, Maine is not far from New York. Portland, Oregon is clear across the country.
Yeah.
And so they took a train, we all took a train from New York to Portland, Oregon, which is probably a week's worth of traveling with 2 small children and my mom being pregnant. And they made it to Portland, and they were met by someone from the Sephardic synagogue in Portland, and who spoke Ladino, so they could speak and understand each other. And it wasn't long before we were settled, and my dad started his own business, and my mom, we just acclimated. We got settled. And so that's where I grew up, in Portland, Oregon. I want to talk a little bit about my Sephardic background, because and I also want to talk about the amount of people that were killed from Greece, because again, a lot of people don't know about the Jewish life in Greece. Salonika, which was the big city near Drama where I grew up, where I was born, had a population of about 55,000 Jews. And it was such that on Shabbat, that businesses were closed because there were so many Jewish people there. The people that weren't Sephardic or weren't Jewish learned to speak Ladino to do communication. Now, Ladino was also a port, Salonika was also a port city. So it brought in a lot of lot of people came and you had to communicate. So anyway, it was some research that I've done says that 87% of the Jews of Salonika were killed, or 87% from Greece, and another one said 93%. I'm not sure which is accurate, but it's a lot. And I was just reading a moment today or yesterday that there's probably only about 5,000 Jews left in Salonika, maybe in all of Greece. It's a very small population considering what was back in the day. Anyhow, when we got to Portland, we did meet. My parents settled in an area not far from the Sephardic synagogue, and we had a good life there. So I grew up there, and I went to college there. I went to Portland State. I started at the University of Oregon, went to Portland State, and then I got a master's degree from Lewis and Clark College. And I was a teacher, elementary teacher in Oregon for about 10 years. My husband, Ira, came to Oregon to go to school at the University of Oregon. He got his master's and PhD in psychology from the University of Oregon. So we met and got married in 1976. So we almost 50 years of marriage. And we have 2 boys. Jacob is 44, and Jacob has cerebral palsy. And Jeremy, my younger son, is 38, and he and his wife live in Reno, and they have a little baby. That's the joy of everybody. And they named their baby Allegra, which is my mother's name, which is just so touching and so beautiful. I also want to say that my dad didn't get to meet any of our spouses. He didn't get to meet any of his grandchildren. He died young. He died in his early 60s. My mom was a widow in her late 40s. There's an age difference in my parents. But my mom was so strong and so capable that my parents owned apartments, she could manage the apartments, she just did everything. And to this day, there are 3 great-grandchildren that are named after her in one way or another. One's Eliza, one's our baby Allegra, and then the other one has Allegra as a middle name, Sophia Allegra. So my mom is remembered by her family. My brother's son Avi is named after my dad. My dad's name was Avram or Albert in the United States. So my parents are remembered and cherished. But I want to say a little bit about inclusion, because that's a very important part of my life too, with Jacob. When we moved here to Dallas in 1984, Jacob was 4 years old, but I wanted Jacob to have a Jewish education. I wanted him someday to have a bar mitzvah, which he did. And I started calling the synagogues in Dallas saying, do you have a program for my son who has a disability? And everyone said no.
Not yet. They didn't have one back then.
They didn't have it.
Right.
And except Beth Torah, which is a synagogue that we belong to. So Beth Torah said, no, he can come, and everyone was wonderful to him. Now, I did go with him. I didn't expect a teacher to manage everything for him, and I was happy to do that. And I didn't have my other son yet, so I was happy to help Jacob. And Jacob had an amazing bar mitzvah. He had an exceptional tutor, Eleanor Adels, who was a speech pathologist, but an absolute perfectionist with Torah reading and leading service and all that. He was very fortunate to have her in his life. And and today we're very involved with inclusion at Beth Torah. I think that more and more people are having children with disabilities reach that milestone, which is a real joy. And when I was growing up, girls didn't have bat mitzvahs.
Right.
So Beth Torah offered a B'nai Mitzvah class to, there were some men in the classes too, because some men didn't, for some reason, didn't have one, or maybe they converted and they didn't have one. So I joined a B'nai Mitzvah class taught by Denny Ticker, who is 1 in a million, and I loved it. I loved learning about it. I loved being able to lead a service, of course with other people, but I loved it. And from that, I got into Jewish education, and I started teaching at Beth Torah in their learning center. So there were things that happen in your life that lead to something else, which is what happened to me. And so it was all wonderful.
What kind of things are you involved in these days?
Well, I'm on the inclusion committee, and we're planning, February is Jewish Disabilities Month, so we're planning something in later part of February at Beth Torah, where we invite the residents of High.
Oh, great.
And they come, and it's great. And we usually have a speaker. So I've arranged to have someone be our speaker this year that I know will be very, it'll be very special to have her there.
Very good. And what about in the community? Are you involved in anything civically? Jewish-wise, or anything.
Well, we're involved with Special Olympics.
Oh, okay.
Jacob Bowles with the Special Olympics, so that's really special.
Right.
The other thing that I've been involved in here and there is speaking about the Holocaust to groups. I've done a few things for the Intro to Judaism group, people that are converting to Judaism. Rabbi Zeleny was our rabbi at Beth Torah, and she would always ask me to speak to the groups about the Holocaust, which I was happy to do. I loved doing that. I've also been involved with Ladino, the Day of Ladino with Rachel Bortnick, who is a really special person. Yeah. And I've done some things where they had Ladino Day at SMU. And I've been a speaker there and told them about how it was growing up in Portland and being Sephardic. And I also went to a Judaism class that I think it was called, I'm not sure what she called it at SMU. There's a course you take, maybe it's Intro to Judaism. It's not Intro to Judaism, but anyhow, Rachel and I went and spoke to her class. So I've done things like that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. If you had to pick somebody, can you name someone who you would consider your mentor?
Well, definitely my parents.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because they showed me how to be resilient, how to be strong, how to just be positive. And we all have challenges in life, and I always look back on what they accomplished and what they overcame, and it gives me strength. Plus, when my parents were alive, they were very encouraging. So, definitely them.
You've been in Dallas how long?
40 years.
40. Okay, so then my question is, you came here a while ago till now. How have you seen the city change? I know besides size, obviously, but what else have you seen?
Well, back to Jacob and disabilities, I've seen a more receptive feeling at synagogues and other activities. Jacob and I took the class here with Laura Seymour, and everyone was wonderful. And we also took this amazing trip to Israel, as you know.
Of course.
And I was just so grateful to have the people to travel with that we traveled with, because they were all so generous and kind and helpful. So I think I've noticed a lot of warmth towards all, but especially to people with disabilities, and I'm very happy to see that people be accepting.
So no regrets about moving here?
No,
That's
no,
good.
I'm happy to be here. I think it's been a good place for us. We lived in, after Ira and I got married, we lived in Portland, and then we moved to South Florida,
Oh,
and then we moved to Dallas. Ira worked for Humana, and they asked him to come and be the president at Medical City Dallas, the one on Forest Lane.
mm-hmm.
And so that's what brought us to Dallas.
Okay. Well, we're very happy you got here.
Thank you.
Eventually came.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your insight and for your wonderful words of wisdom and everything else.
Thank you.
And for being here and doing this.
It's my
Appreciate it.
pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.